I wonder when was the last time I did a Sonic video on the channel. I know it's been a long time, but I don't know how long has it been. Let me check real quick. Oh, it's been that long? Ooh, well, let me change that real quick. Oh, Sonic Advance 3, huh? That's the topic of today. Ooh, yeah, we're definitely gonna be here for a while. So just grab the popcorn and we're just, yeah. Alrighty then, so we know how we all feel about the blue blur of Speed, correct? He's snarky, confident, a bit goofy sometimes, and we all love him just the same despite what we have to say about certain games. That's like a given. But we know that when it comes to Sonic as a franchise, there will be fun times and there will be whatever the hell Sonic Advance 3 is at the end of the day, and oh man, the many things I have to say about you today is insane. For those that have seen my previous reviews regarding the Sonic Advance trilogy so far, you already know my personal history of these games. But for those that are new, well, let me repeat myself like the broken ass record that I am and also say welcome. Thank you for stopping by and witness what's to come in the next few minutes. Well, I grew up with the adventure era in the early 2000s with Sonic Mega Collection, Sonic Heroes, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2's GameCube ports, Shadow the Hedgehog, and the Sonic Rider sub-series. The handheld setting was surprisingly nowhere to be seen on my end besides Sonic Rush for the Nintendo DS. But we all know how I feel about this game in particular, but hey, I'm not stressing that just yet. But now after tackling the previous Sonic Advance games last year and giving them their respective spotlight, I'd figure that as a means to finally see what DIMS was offering on the GBA front, I would close this chapter on the Sonic Advance series with a Sonic Advance 3 video here, which I know for one that this game was something. Like, this game was definitely something. See, now look, I've complained about Sonic 06 or every other bad Sonic game like a true Sonic fan would, but Sonic Advance 3 somehow managed to make me reconsider those thoughts. And I know for one that there are going to be some out there that will defend this game to the bitter frickin' end. I completely get it, and I've been there on both the front and receiving end when it comes down to defending games that we all love and have played as a kid or even recently. It's just part of the way of life for a gamer today, and as a Sonic fan specifically, yeah, look man, it's just the way the world works. But Sonic Advance 3 isn't one of those games, Sonic or otherwise, that I would defend so bombastically since what this game offered doesn't sit right with me for reasons I'll get into later. Of course, like all Sonic games, whether good or bad, there must be a history to go over about their releases back then, and Sonic Advance 3 is no different in that case. Releasing for the GBA in 2003 for Japan and 2004 for the West with THQ Publishing once again, and receiving roughly the same success as its predecessors, Sonic Advance 3 presented something for the blue blur of Speed and friends, what is basically their third Nintendo handheld adventure, while on the console setting having Sonic Heroes on the forefront for Sonic fans to enjoy and also realize that they've treated these games harshly all those years later. The life of a Sonic fan surely is something to feel proud of, no? No, not really. However, with the growing popularity of the Game Boy Advance and whatever the hell the Nintendo GameCube was doing at the time with its releases, DIMS decided that for this third installment to the sub-series, they felt like trying a few things out when it came down to that 2D Sonic formula, and in the case of Sonic Advance 3, they came with the conclusion of presenting Sonic's GBA adventure at the time by saying, hey, so you guys remember Sonic Advance 1 and 2? Well, I know where this is heading. Look, whatever your feelings are about this game particularly, what remains a fact is that what Sonic Advance 3 had going for it was being a 2D Sonic game that decided to do whatever the hell it wanted. And how it did that was combining all, and I really mean all, the elements of Sonic Advance 1 and 2. Be it from the level theme and design, the controls and gimmicks for enemies or traps, the functionality of each and every character, all of this was crammed into Sonic Advance 3's ass so hard that already right out the gate of me playing this game, I felt like I was going to have one of the times of my life. Again, this one's gonna be a fun one, so let's see what the game offers and pray I don't get scorched earth by all the Sonic fans out there. Let's just face the facts here. I'm already gonna get scorched earth with the amount of times I've called Sonic Rush mid. How low am I gonna go already? Sonic Advance 3 starts us off with Eggman once again, who after being blown away in space for who knows how many times now because he couldn't piss on the moon any further, decided that the game is up for Sonic and the gang by now utilizing the power of the Chaos Emeralds to not only help in creating his Eggman Empire, again, but also in splitting the world into 7 pocket universes because he decided to say screw it, I'm done playing games. As per usual, it's up to Sonic and the ragtag team of Tails, Knuckles, Amy, and Cream to once again stop Eggman from succeeding in his plans, restore the world back to normal, take a group photo to celebrate their massive W, and move on with their lives. Which, yeah, this is basically the entire plot of Sonic Advance 3. It's another standard Sonic adventure that takes inspiration from both the classic and adventure era without overstepping too much of its boundaries. Much like how the previous two games handled theirs, Sonic Advance 3's lack of proper story isn't something that I think detracts this game's overall experience, since at the end of the day, it's all about how fast Sonic goes and how well the level designs in each zones are, and I think that's the most important part about these games, instead of trying to figure out the moral philosophy of an egg-shaped bald man or why the Master Emerald can somehow turn the world back to normal. But despite me saying that I don't care about this game's story, there is one thing to take note of in terms of Sonic Advance 3's plot, and that is that it takes place after the events of Sonic Battle, the poor-ass attempt at making a Sonic fighting game that also released for the GBA at the time. Now, why a battle game and a handheld platformer are connected here is mainly because alongside Eggman's plans to create that multiverse of madness, he also had leftover data to create Gemerald, the upgraded version of Emerald that you get to encounter throughout the course of this game as sort of like a Metal Sonic counterpart, which I guess it's a neat touch? I mean, Emerald was cool and all, especially loved him in the Sonic X episodes when he debuted, but I don't understand why they decided to bring a side game into the continuity here, especially with how little of importance it is at the end unless you're playing as Cream and unlocking the true ending, which they all live happily ever after while Vector is out there grabbing the Sonic equivalent of milk. It also bothers me that Sonic Battle is referenced here because I wish we were allowed to play as Shadow and Rouge as extra modes to see how they would work in a 2D Sonic game, which sadly ended up being a major missed opportunity here with Sonic Advance 3. Something that I know Sega won't do, but the fans will sure as hell do, so major salute to all the Sonic modders and fan developers out there, you the realest of ones. Moving on from the story now and entering what Sonic is mostly known for, Sonic Advance 3's gameplay is what you would expect to see from a standard 2D Sonic game. So yes, of course, you got the usual zone structures as before, and you got Eggman to beat at the end of each of them with whatever vehicle he has up its sleeve to combat Sonic and the gang here, which holy mother Mobius, Eggman isn't playing this time around. There are also some changes in the game structure that make Sonic Advance 3 the most interesting here when compared to the previous two Advance games. With the previous two games, you get to choose your character and get the journey going immediately, but somehow with Advance 3 here, instead of starting the stage like the previous games did, you're sent immediately into an overworld after witnessing the brief cutscene. And yeah, you heard me correctly, I said an overworld. In a 2D Sonic game. Look, I admire the attempt of an overworld for Sonic to traverse through. I mean, Sonic Adventure 1, Unleash, and Frontiers are my favorite Sonic games because of how well they handled that department. They brought us a nice sense of world building and understanding that Sonic's adventures in these games are larger than life and makes traversing through them all the more enjoyable. However, those examples I brought up are all 3D Sonic games that run on console, so how do I feel about the overworld structure in this 2D pixelated handheld Sonic experience, you may be asking? God, Sonic Advance 3's overworld is so lackluster that it hurts my eyes even looking at it. The designs for them are poorly executed and don't scream the zone's themes and aesthetics before entering a stage because it's nothing but a weird background you can't really see well and a foreground of blocky platforming that just looks so stupid and out of place. Definitely not my favorite thing about this game, and that's not saying much. But like I said already, if you enjoy this game then you do you, but in the case of the stage designs and presentation, it's not something that I can get behind in full honesty. But let's start with the positives before I inevitably become a true Sonic fan and tear this game down to shreds. For one here, I don't mind the layout of some of the stages here since they do give some aspects of the previous games in terms of gimmicks, traps, and enemies that makes a standard 2D Sonic game work. Now work properly, you may be asking? You tell me. I do have some favorites zooming through the speed of sound like Sunset Hill Zone, Twinkle Snow Zone, and Ocean Base Zone, but others like Toy Kingdom Zone, Chaos Angel Zone, and almost the rest of the game in its entirety just made me feel uneasy for no apparent reason. It's like that feeling you get sometimes when you're playing a game or doing something that somehow your stomach twists and turns, and you kind of feel like going, oh, well that's how I feel with Sonic Advance 3's level design. There are just a lot of things that don't work for me in regards to what Sonic Advance 3 presents, and it's mainly due to its combined efforts of pulling everything from the previous games and just trying to make things work, like in the case of the stop and go elements from Sonic Advance 1. Sure, it gets the job done in at least halting the speed a bit, which was something I critiqued back in Sonic Advance 2, but if it's constant and suddenly in your face when you're not even looking, then we have a major issue here, and when you pair it with the speed and boost that Sonic Advance 2 already provided, then things start to not make any real sense here, especially when you start seeing this all the time. But that's honestly a minor complaint, and the things that I do have to complain about I'll go in depth in a second, but to say one positive thing about these stages, I like how long they could take to complete. Unlike Sonic Advance 1 and 2 where they take about 2 minutes max, these stages take about 5 minutes to complete each, and for a Sonic fan, I know this sounds rather long, but I can't help but find this part rather enjoyable. There is always something so fun and explorative in each zone that despite me hating its content, I find a sense of wonder as to where else can I take Sonic and the gang as route to the next checkpoint available, and that's pretty exciting the more looking back. Some of the routes to take can be weird to find though, since I'm sure with a tiny screen the GBA had wouldn't opt for a more wide scope of where to go next like it would on a console, but for what it offered something unique and I guess refreshing when compared to the simplistic stop and go elements from Sonic Advance 1 and the precursor to the modern Sonic stage in Sonic Advance 2. It's a nice blend I find, and one I wouldn't mind seeing more often. Despite that praise though, the zones still don't feel as functional as I think Thim's intended them to be, and on occasion I felt like in some parts of the stages there was some RNG bullshit that got the best of me. I swear I don't understand the sudden placement of the stop and go elements or even with the enemy and spike gimmicks here, and if you're someone like me, after getting your ass whooped in a Sonic game for the 10th time already, you're really asking for it, no questions asked. The gimmicks for these stages too are no help either, and while they seem fine and in tune with the zone's themes and aesthetics, they don't really do that much in adding any sort of fun to them. Sure, you got the springs that swing you sideways in Sunset Hill Zone and the panda spinning carts in Toy Kingdom Zone, sure, they were fine, but that's the problem. They were fine gimmicks that don't amount to much in the grand scheme of the already horrendous level design some of these stages have. Chaos Angel Zone and Cybertrack Zone especially come into mind in those aspects because my god, what was Dims even cooking with these zones to begin with? Like, I like Chaos Angel as a concept, who wouldn't, since it's to reflect on Sonic Advance 1's Angel Island Zone and given some importance to the game's lore, so to speak, with how the Chaos Emeralds are the only way to fix the world because of course they can. It's the Chaos Emeralds we're talking about here. And playing this game, especially after beating Frontiers, is now fun knowing that the second moon you see in the final boss of the regular ending of Advance 3 is awfully staring down at us like, hey, you animal you haven't seen it all, but this zone's overall execution is just a mess of a stage that makes you think that it's trying to challenge you, but really is trying to punish you for no real reason other than to say, gotcha bitch! I'm bringing out the bottle. What's even more annoying about the stage designs is that if you suddenly have a boost in speed, which just means Sonic and the gang having that silhouette from Advance 2, you'll immediately lose it because of the aforementioned stop and go elements, and this in turn just makes dealing with the game as if it's some kind of a chore, easily making the game go from, wee, I'm really feeling it now, to, oh god, let this hell end already. I swear, this game is making me lose my f***ing mind. To at least continue with another positive, I will say that the theme aesthetics are something I absolutely love, since in some ways you can argue Sonic Advance 3 seems to be the closest feeling of bringing parts of the adventure era into a full 2D setting. Again, this makes sense in some ways when you consider Sonic Battle to be canon to the story, which is also canon to the adventure games, and now reminding myself of that little tidbit here, I now have this mental image of linking Sonic Battle and Sonic Frontiers because oh my god, they're in the same universe now. You mostly see these with Route 99 having a city escape feel from Sonic Adventure 2, and Chaos Angel Zone reminded me a lot of Lost World and Angel Island from Sonic Adventure 1, which are fine touches to this game and creates a safe continuity of sorts in terms of what modern Sonic was providing back then, making me appreciate the game a little bit more now since I am someone who grew up with this era of Sonic. However, that's really about it in terms of adding some identity when compared to the previous games, because like all Sonic games, you will have your repeats regardless of what people have to say about original level design. You still got the green hills, the ice caps, the lava reefs, and metallic madness type of stages going for you, and that's not much of a critique at this point as it is a mere fact with this franchise, because where else is Sonic going to, huh? Space? Well, too bad, he's done that shit so many times now. But I haven't even stressed the one thing that makes Sonic Advance 3 so unique as a 2D Sonic game that just made me lose it. And that's none other than having the stupid buddy system this game just decided to do. Sonic Advance 3 introduces the team-up mechanic, and if you played Sonic Heroes, then you know more or less what DIMS decided to do in this game regarding this mechanic. It's just another gimmick in place with the amount of BS this game already provided that allows you to use a secondary character's abilities for both better exploration and traversal through stages. It also allows for some replayability, because in case I didn't mention this now, goddamn, from the start of the game you only have Sonic and Tails at your disposal here, and over the course of progressing through the game naturally, you unlock the other characters to play as, and with this team-up mechanic in mind, this also means you have now an itching feeling in the back of your neck and you want to see how the other idiots play in this game particularly. And with 5 characters to choose from, that means you get a solid 10 combinations to utilize with their respective gimmicks. Like in Sonic Heroes, there are 3 main abilities each character has at their disposal. You got Speed paired with Sonic, Power paired with Knuckles, and Fly, which you guessed it, is paired with Tails. That allows you an additional speed boost, a stronger attack to use for Eggman and enemies, and Fly abilities that allows easier access to certain parts of the stages, or just something funny to indulge in before you inevitably realize that you got shit to do in this game and a tolerance of pain to endure. However, I only used a good amount of 4 pair combinations for the sake of variety here and at least something to show for, because honestly, while this mechanic is neat and all, it's not something that can be trusted in terms of clearing the stage overall. Most of the time you'll end up playing as Sonic and occasionally Tails and Knuckles because of that classic era nostalgia, but having to pair them with a secondary character ultimately makes you choose Sonic by default, since the whole point of a Sonic game is fast-paced platforming. The other just sort of slow the pace, which is fine for that exploration value I mentioned, but that's really about it. They don't present a challenge, and most of the time you will consider these combinations as an afterthought since they're just underutilized in the end, which already says a lot about this game as a whole. And don't even ask me about the special stages either for this stupid game, because I did not even bother at all for this one, as in order to unlock them, you need to at least find 9 chows that are scattered throughout each zone and its stages. Once you do find them all, there's a special spring like that of Sonic Advance 1 waiting for you to enter what is basically another pseudo 3D special stage. Man, this special stage, I'm sorry. I dealt with all the special stages in Sonic Advance 2 for every character, and that to me is already enough, thank you very much. And with what I already said about the stage designs, I'm not going to push myself towards replaying this game again and again, even if we now have guides to make things easier. I will at least say though that the inclusion of the chows and their integration into Sonic Advance 3 is something else that I'm surprised it took DIMS that long to incorporate into the series properly. I knew already that in all Sonic Advance games you were able to have a tiny chow garden to take care of and could even import and export some chows to your chow gardens in both Sonic Adventure games, almost as if they're going into customs at an airport, but seeing them as part of the general gameplay style of Sonic Advance 3 here felt rather rewarding, satisfying, relieved. At this point, I don't even know. Again, these are nice little touches to the continuity of the adventure era, but this doesn't help present a case of what Sonic Advance 3 already is, in my opinion, a very, very mediocre 2D Sonic game at its best, and a jumbled up mess of a Sonic game at its worst, with how much it tried to do and failed at the end due to poor execution. Like, man, looking back at my experience here, I have some mixed feelings about this game, because there are some good things that I think were neat and enjoyable here, but easily got overshadowed by the things I hated overall. It just dropped the bag so hard that it just feels like a lackluster presentation and something that just needed a little bit more time and note exchanging to make it seem more worthwhile. There is simply way too much that goes against the premise of what I think this game should have been, that it feels like Sonic Advance 3 was way too ambitious for its time, because truth be told, if this game was made for the Nintendo DS like Sonic Rush did back in 2005, then I'm sure the game's level design would work well with better hardware and allow more wiggle room to see what the stages would have had presented. But because it was made on a tinier screen and less to work with, it just feels like a lot to take in all at once. Sonic Advance 3 to me really missed the mark and brings a rather embarrassing conclusion to what is considered a really good sub-series for the Sonic franchise that I could say as a whole I really liked and wish I didn't miss out on back when they initially released. I mean, I was raised a DS kid, so what can I say? The pixel art is something that will stick with me regarding these games, and a part of me now wishes more than ever for a Sonic Advance Mania, since it would help a lot on Advance 3 stage designs having a redo of sorts, especially when you look back at how marvelous Mania as a classic style game is to this very day, nostalgia pandering or otherwise. Just give the Advance games a new coat of paint, the same developers of Mania, and you got yourselves a good ass solid 2D modern game that would be just exciting to play. Come on Sega, I know you want this, I'm just practically giving you the idea for free. The animation, stage designs, music, and overall identity these games possess, well, what two of them have anyways, as they moved on towards the modern era of Sonic is also another thing that I absolutely love and will miss the most with this trilogy here. They just nailed so many things right in providing that classic era platforming while also ensuring the fans of the adventure era something new and modern at the time. They were fun to breeze through and something just so refreshing to look at today, where the discourse of Sonic games are, well, there's certainly something, that's for sure. I mean, remember the shit Frontiers had back when it released? Besides all that, I know that I'm gonna miss playing the Sonic Advance trilogy because these were really fun games at the end of the day, just that with Sonic Advance 3 particularly, it just fell off. But you wanna know something though? All this talk about 2D handheld adventures has me thinking about maybe diving into the Sonic Rush trilogy somewhere down the line, especially since I kinda grew up with that era of 2D Sonic games particularly. And yeah, I know many of you guys are aware of why I call Sonic Rush mid, which yeah, I said it, and I'll say it again, Sonic Rush is mid. Don't try and tempt fate here by the way, because in case you weren't aware, I'm also a Sonic fan. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, love you all to 120 forever, and always stay safe and sexy out there, be awesome, peace out, and take care. Oh, this is definitely gonna be a video when it comes out.